Genuine,
Man, Genuine's the name before leather. Like, it's Genuine Leather.
Genuine.
Mr. Leather, first name Genuine.
How the song go, bro?
Which one?
The same man. Come on.
Let's do it. Light it, my pony, my saddle, waiting.
I got Nelly on one side, and I got 50 and Nelly's kid on the other.
Anyways,
Don't get me
he's a
started.
classic. He's a classic.
Hey,
You know
man.
what I'm saying?
No hate from me.
I'm just making sure. Just gotta educate the guests sometimes. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm joking.
Yeah, it's all good, man.
I'm joking.
We here.
So, we here, though. We here.
We're
You know
back.
what they say, right?
What?
Life's a breeze when you're Lebanese. Nobody says that. That's not a thing. That's not
I was
a
about
thing.
to say you Persian though.
Yeah,
so,
I know. That's why it's not a breeze.
Is life a breeze when you're Lebanese? I don't know.
Got to ask some guys at Northside here.
When is life a breeze?
When you're Japanese.
When you're white.
I was expecting a joke, but you're not wrong.
That
there.
guy
Whoa,
kinda dark real
whoa,
quick.
whoa, whoa.
I got dark real quick.
We're stepping on.
Yeah. Okay.
Enemy territory here.
Enemy.
Woo. Woo.
Anyways,
happening.
Alberta might be mad at me for that one.
I'm mad.
Damn.
I'm pissed.
So let's. Speaking of Alberta, we're born in Iran.
Introductions, man. They don't know who we are yet, bro. Come on.
They know who we are.
Maybe it's a first time viewer, bro. Let's do the intros, man. Come on.
We're
They
here.
definitely don't know who I am.
Payman
That's me.
Parseyan.
That's me again.
Pay my man, Payman.
Yeah, I'm not an accountant, though.
just to clarify.
Name like an accountant. I'm not an accountant.
No.
Nothing
That
to
would
do with
actually be a
finances.
sick. If you were ever an accountant, bro,
I would.
I would be this. Like I would come up with
Payman
some
accounting?
amazing ads.
Actually, Payman accounting.
Trust me,
wow,
bro.
dude, what
That's
came
such
up with your name? I'm like, that's
brand.
literally
So
my
tough,
first name.
man.
If anybody named Payman decides to become an accountant, you have to give the gap.
Dude,
thank.
you do not want that guy near your money. Let me tell you straight up right now. Take it from a Ham Esmi in Persian, like the person that has the same name as you, you know? That's not a thing either.
Payman Parseyan. You've got a very, very long resume. I don't know what. Before I started this, I don't know what to like.
How do you? Yeah. How do we? What's your title?
Yeah.
Simple.
I just a little motto there. I've got a motto. I was made in Iran, but assembled in Alberta.
Alberta strong.
Yeah.
Gas and oil.
I love oil.
Gas
Yeah.
and oil. I
Oil.
never heard that. You are not from Alberta. If you refer to the industry as gas and oil. I am the big supporter of the gas and oil sector.
new, bro.
I'm gonna start
That's not a
doing
thing.
that.
Gas and oil?
You gonna run with that?
You know, I like it. I like
Gas
it.
and oil.
We're different. We're
In
different.
2050, it might be the gas and oil sector because gas will overtake oil by then. But for now,
man.
it's the oil and gas sector.
What?
O and G.
What is with oil and
What,
gas?
like, come on. What's
What
the
is
hype?
big
What's
deal?
the hoopla behind it, man?
I mean, everything that we have essentially is because of fossil fuels. People are being lifted out of poverty with fossil fuels, and Alberta happens to be home to the world's third largest oil reserves, proven oil reserves. We're the world's fourth largest producer and fourth largest exporter. So this is oil country. We have a team called the Oilers. We literally refer to ourselves as oil country. And the capital of the capital of Newfoundland, Fort McMurray, is where most of the oil and gas projects happen.
Capital of Newfoundland?
Yeah, if you went up to Fort Mac, you would definitely understand why we say that.
There's all Newfies over there?
Mostly. You know, one thing that's interesting about Fort Mac, I think that doesn't get brought up enough is Fort Mac is the epitome, the definition of Confederacy in Canada. When you're up there as an Albertan working on oil and gas projects, oftentimes you're the minority of the workforce, with the vast majority being from different parts throughout Canada. Like, I'm on oil and gas projects and I'm meeting people from BC and Halifax and Ontario and Quebec. And, you know, when I say I'm an Albertan, they're like, oh, you're actually from around here. I'm like, what do you mean I'm actually from around here? Like, this is Alberta.
That's kind of crazy. Cause
Yeah. Nobody talks about that.
I find a lot of people that are in Alberta aren't from Alberta. Not just
Well,
Fort
I
Mac.
think a lot of it does have to do with oil and gas. I think there was that that boom in 2009. 2008.
The crash in 2008.
The crash. Okay.
But
Well, anyways, that's-
Alberta's oil and gas sector has been, centerpiece for economic prosperity in this country for a very long time. Alberta's been contributing to Canada net contributions since the 60s. So with the growth in the oil and gas sector, of course, we're going to see a growth in workforce, a growth in people that want opportunities and jobs. Alberta's always prided itself on being a free market economy, being attractive to business and investment and entrepreneurship. And this is the sense that brought so many opportunities here and companies to want to invest in this province. And frankly, part of the reason that's feeding the recent uprisings.
You just said that Alberta has contributed to a lot of Canada.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of the equalization program. I want to talk about that a bit, where you have Albertans saying that they don't want to support. Like, I've heard this from some people. They don't feel like they want to support the rest of Canada. They feel like it's not necessary. But then you have provinces like PEI, Nova Scotia's that kind of rely on that. So, like, do you think it's right for, as an Albertan, to say, listen, you guys worry about yourself? Or is it kind of a fair sense to say, no, this program works, we're all Canadian, we should all support each other?
I don't think any reasonable Albertan doesn't want to support the rest of Canada. I think most Albertans are proud Canadians and are proud to be a part of this country and proud to have contributed to this country. Where the frustration, and rightfully so, where the frustration comes in is when government gets in the way of Alberta's ability to continue to produce that income that has fueled so much in this country.
Talk more into the mic.
Canada's contributions over the last 50 years, I've heard is something around $650 billion net to the rest of the country. And Albertans have proudly, I would imagine, contributed that to the rest of the country. But now that Alberta's down, now that Alberta's hurting and the economy's taking a turn for the worst, federal government policies seem to be getting in the way of Alberta. And this is the frustration that continues to grow because we see the vast majority of the revenue that came from Alberta contributed to the equalization payments seems to have gone towards Quebec. And then you seem to have the most resentment against Alberta from Quebec saying, trying to tell Albertans how not to proceed within their industries, which has fueled and paid for so much in Quebec, so much infrastructure and hospitals and schools and roads and the money that they use to, subsidize their childcare and subsidize their tuition.
So it's like, who are you to tell us how to go about our dealings?
Last year, Alberta gave $13 billion to Quebec, not to Quebec, but to the federal equalization pot.
Yeah.
Right? These are taxes that people pay into a federal pot, and then that federal pot is distributed amongst have and have not provinces. And so Quebec is considered a have not province. And so they receive the vast majority of that equalization payments while they're running a $2 billion surplus, and Alberta's running ran an $11 billion deficit. Alberta's giving almost that exact amount to the federal pot, and Quebec's running a surplus and still telling Alberta what to do. It seems frustrating, that's all. And rightfully so.
I think before you continue, people should know that you do indeed work in politics.
Well, I did, yes.
You did,
I did work in politics, and I sit right of center in my politics. I think moderation and everything is absolutely necessary, so I wouldn't say I sit too far on any end of any spectrum, but I don't think that any single ideology is the answer to everything. If you're going into an election and, for example, let's say in the States, it's Democrats versus Republican. If you agree with the Republican Party on 6 out of 10 policies, great. I think you should vote for them. If you agree with them 10 out of 10, you should go see a psychiatrist.
It's something different, yeah.
Yeah, just get real, right? Like, people are different. Politics is about compromise. And it's about how much are you willing to compromise your own personal wants and views and needs to ensure that the rest of the community is receiving a reasonable standard of living. And I guess define reasonable now. So.
And I think that comes with time, like you just said, that I think parties nowadays, they're becoming less far right or far left. They're becoming more, like you just saying, more centered in a sense, where they're not all their ideologies are not always so
Extreme.
drastic, extreme. Yeah, in a sense.
Interesting. I see division growing among people. I see, people growing either right or very left, and that middle ground, that moderation in what you do seems to be getting lost. Most governments, though, govern from the center. You could have a NDP government who campaigns on, we're going to limit the fossil fuel industry, we're going to push for sustainable energy production, and then they get in government, and then you see, well, they pull a little bit to the center. You've got Rachel Notley, a known advocate of more environmental policies than the oil and gas sector, advocating for pipelines. And then you've got a premier like Jason Kenney now, who sits right of center, obviously, campaign from right of the center, comes into power and seems to be more governing from the middle than from, a lot of people praised Ralph Klein, who made drastic cuts on the conservative side of politics, who made drastic cuts of 20% in government in the 90s, where Jason Kenney came in and people are equating him to Ralph Klein's cuts, but he's making cuts of 2.5% to 3%. So I don't think that's comparable. I think that's more of a centrist, fiscally conservative premier, but that's my views, right?
Mm-hmm. With oil and gas,
yeah.
From my understanding, from growing up in here, and they teach you in science in like the 10th grade, fossil fuels are non-renewable.
Correct.
So would it not be?
Well, it depends on what time scale you speak of. It could be renewable. I mean, if you live millions of years, it's renewable.
Yeah. So, if Alberta is struggling so bad, would it not make sense to start transitioning in another direction from oil and gas?
And the funny thing is, the last government came in and campaigned on diversifying Alberta's economy, and by the end of their mandate, 4 years, they were more reliant on the oil and gas revenues than when they initially got into government in 2015. The current government, I think they're trying to diversify Alberta's economy, and I think any good government would definitely want to diversify their economy. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket as a government, especially on such a globally volatile resource. But we got to get a few things straight first. What is oil and gas, right? A lot of people are thinking that it's dead dinosaurs. And they make they show a plastic dinosaur and saying, "Hey, look, it's a former dinosaur turned into a toy dinosaur." Most oil and gas are plants. Like if you look at a forest and compare the amount of plants and green life there is compared to, the amount of moose and elk and squirrels, that's likely the proportion of what hydrocarbons in the ground are like. Now, oil is produced, and gases are produced by the decomposition of our life, organic materials like carbon, that contain carbon, under extreme pressures and heat. Now, it depends. I mean, if the heat is too high, you're likely to have more of a gas. If the heat is just right and the pressure is just right, you'll have oil. Depending on how much pressure and heat there is, you'll have either a lighter oil or you'll have a heavier oil. Alberta seems to have generally heavier oil. We have bitumen. Now, oil is the weight or the heaviness of oil is measured on something that's called APIG. American Petroleum Institute is the benchmark institution that sets industry standards for the oil and gas sector in most of North America. The G stands for gravity. At APIG 10, you've got the same density and like water. For example, you've got 1,000 kilograms per meter cubed. As you go higher in APIG, then the oil is lighter and it'll float on water. Asphalt on the roads, you're looking at something like 6 to 8. The fuel that you put in your car, 55. So what Alberta extracts in their oil sands operations, bitumen itself is about 10, but Alberta's oil, the Western Canadian Select, the larger portion of the oil that we sell, is somewhere around 18 to 22. To give comparison to what other oils look like, West Texas Intermediate is more around high 30s, like 38. Dubai, mid 30s, like 33, 35. Brent crudes, now you're talking something like high 30s to low 40s. That's what makes the difference in prices. So the lower the number is, the more refinement it needs. That's why Alberta's oil is priced a little bit lower, because you got to refine it a little bit more to get it up to those market grades of 38.
Takes more work, yeah.
Correct.
I see.
So, on a spectrum of like oil producers, you said Alberta is the 4th highest producer, but where does the quality of oil fall?
So it depends on what oil that we extract and what we're refining. Canada has various oils. So we have, for example, Canada Light Sweet, which is comparable to West Texas Intermediate oil, and it sells at relatively similar prices. The majority of the oil we sell is Western Canadian Select. That oil, because it's technically a lower quality, that 18 to 22 mark, it takes money to refine that oil up to higher grades. That refinement, somebody did the math, and it was about $8 a barrel US. And so there should definitely be an $8 barrel US differential if it's going to make market sense based on refining our product into what would be West Texas Intermediate. And then you've got the shipping tolls, right? You've got pipeline tolls or trucking tolls or railway tolls to get that oil to the place.
Yeah.
So then you got to tack on another, depends on the route you use, $4 to $6 US. So there's a differential of $12 to $14 between West Texas.
Is there a difference between the mode of transportation, like you said, pipelines? Is that efficient? Because I know there's this whole squirrel or whole issue right now with the pipelines going on, and Trudeau addressed it recently, where there's an indigenous group. I'm not too sure. I'll probably Google it, but there's an indigenous group that's essentially protesting against it. And
just a few people. Okay, look, this is a very complex issue, obviously.
100%.
The line that you're talking about, there are two different pipelines that we're talking about, and there's one oil and gas project that we're talking about. One that's made the news frequently so far is the Coastal GasLink pipeline. The Coastal GasLink pipeline is a pipeline that runs through 9, I believe, First Nation band areas.
It's east to west, right? It's
north,
east to west,
north to south.
North to south?
Yeah. The Coastal GasLink pipeline is supported by every First Nations elected band on the pipeline route. Now, First Nations, obviously, there's a complexity of issues there because there's what's called elected chiefs, and then there's hereditary chiefs.
Yeah.
The elected chiefs make most of the decisions for the bands, but the hereditary chiefs, they abide by more traditional rules within the First Nations communities. There's 13 First Nation community hereditary chiefs that were in the Wet'suwet'en Nation. Of the 13, 8 were in favor of the pipeline and 5 were against. So even the hereditary chiefs, the majority of them were in favor. The 5 that were opposed voiced their opposition quite loudly.
Yeah.
That coupled with activists that appeared to be from places other than Canada started to get involved and essentially shut down Canada's economy, which surprised me that the Prime Minister didn't step in. Like even the most anti-governmental, like libertarian, classical liberalists would have expected the government to intervene and
Sooner,
enforce the rule of law to say, hey, a small minority of extreme radicals don't get to hold our nation hostage over their ideological ways.
And see, that's where I think it becomes tricky, is because what you mean by our nation is what they're seeing it as is like we've been here first. You know what I'm saying? They have a history. They have a long-standing history.
That's a whole separate issue, and of course, there's a lot of work yet to be done. But I mean, we have to recognize that their people are given the opportunity to elect their own leaders. Their people are given an opportunity to select who makes decisions for them. They went through 2 elections and hosted a referendum during this issue, which came out with an 85% in favor vote of the pipeline. So the vast majority, you know what an 85% majority looks like? Our mayor here in Edmonton is quite popular. Don Iveson was, I mean, undeniably the better candidate on the previous election ballot. Not that I agree with his policies per se, but
a little more closer to the mic. Just take it with you.
Yeah, just to put into perspective, he got 72% of the vote in the last election. And when 85% vote in favor of this pipeline, that speaks volumes. So again, Canada is a country of fairness. Canada is a country of
equality.
It's a democracy.
Yeah, willing to listen to others, willing to listen to minority voices. but to what extent do you allow the minority voices to control the entire country and the economy?
And narrative, because
For sure.
a lot of the news reports that, you know, these guys are just protesting, but they're not saying that this is a minority, such a small percentage of the people that are, you know, protesting. And
so do you think it's right to respect minority voices? I think it, in a sense, they do have some value.
For sure. You
know
should
what I'm
listen.
saying? Yeah.
Okay, there's three of us sitting here. I say that you guys should be drinking $50,000 coffee or tea. You guys say, well, that's not reasonable. We're going to drink like regular average Joe tea. And I keep raising my voice and being louder and louder. Is that fair for the three of us? Should we have to drink $50,000 coffee?
fuck no.
Well, I mean, look, but it's important that you guys listen and take it into consideration.
We'll hear you out.
Yeah.
And maybe tell me why that's not reasonable. Look, a lot of the people that protested cited the environment as a reason why they shouldn't build the Coastal GasLink pipeline. The Coastal GasLink pipeline is supposed to bring natural gas, hopefully to markets like China, where they could offset coal plants, their power plants, which would emit far more emissions and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than a natural gas plant would. It's this NIMBY attitude, the not in my backyard attitude, that people seem not to put aside when they talk about climate change. Climate change is a global problem. We're not going to fix the globe's climate problems by strangling ourselves in Canada. We're going to fix it by providing solutions that can be globally used. Countries like China and India will put out more emissions than Canada. If we turned off industry in Canada, if we just turned Canada off, we went back into the woods, all of us. Okay, we're not even burning trees anymore. We just turned off. Like, Canada does not have people anymore. In 6 months, you would see no difference than from day one. And so it's important to recognize the only way we're going to make effective change and we're going to bring about the solutions to a global problem is by tackling it with a global means. We should definitely transition away from fossil fuels. We should definitely seek new ways of producing energy, but that doesn't mean shutting off our entire energy sector or our fossil fuel industry, which could help to offset those industries. I mean, if I was in government right now, I'd be looking at nuclear energy, and I would talk to the federal government and say, as leverage, build us pipelines, or allow us to at least, don't build us pipelines. Give us the environment that allows us to build pipelines so that we can get our product out that we use for local energy production. And in place, we will build nuclear microgeneration, plants so that we provide a more sustainable energy production means to our own population while we help offset the rest of the world and take people out of poverty.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So in a sense, it's kind of like short-term pain to avoid, other countries, like you said, India and China, they're like more vast and long-term pain because, like you said, their effect on the whole world would be far larger than ours would, right? So
absolutely.
For us to kind of accept that and say, listen.
But what pain? Like, let's talk about Trans Mountain expansion. There's a current pipeline there that's called the Trans Mountain. It's been there since 1953, and it carries 300,000 barrels a day of oil. Okay. They want to expand this pipeline to 890,000 barrels a day. And I hope I have my stats right on that. And most of that pipeline route would be just twinning the current pipe. So you just dig up the same right of way that's been maintained and they would just add another pipeline there with further capacity to provide Abbotsford's refinery, the BC Lower Mainland, the ability to use Canadian oil in producing their energy requirements and their transport fuels and whatever they want to refine their local product to.
It's basically just upgrading the pipeline, the old pipeline.
Essentially, they're twinning it. Mm-hmm. They would then take the excess oil, and from what I know, they would send it to heavy refineries in the San Francisco area if there's any remaining aside from what Burnaby needs. This pipeline would be equivalent to, I think it's 1,400 or 1,500 tanker trucks on the highway a day. Do you know what that would look like if we were to ship this oil via tanker trucks? You would see a line of 1,400 trucks every single day going to Abbotsford from the Edmonton area. Like, that is ridiculous.
So in a long-term perspective, it's actually less detrimental.
Pipelines are much safer than trucking, which is safer than it's much safer than railway, which is safer than trucking. Pipelines are the safest way, most environmentally sound way. It's, applying the most up-to-date, innovative technologies. If there are spills, you could detect these things, right? A single PSI drop in a pipeline can be detected from pump stations. I mean, the oil and gas sector is not what it was in 1953, but even considering that pipeline has been there since 1953 with no major spills, with exception to, I think there's 3 total in its 60-year lifespan, or 70 years almost. And one of them would have been the city of, I think it was Burnaby, that struck the pipeline because they didn't do a one call with heavy equipment.
I think the problem is with oil spills is like when it happens, the media like over publicizes and over sensationalizes it. So it's like an issue where people almost are opposed to like pipelines. They hear the word pipelines, they're like, okay, no, like I don't want to do this because one of them happens, and I don't know how rare it happens or how common it happens, but as soon as it does, they're just opposed to it.
I think
they should. They should. With spills, I think they should definitely report this stuff. I think they should make sure that the companies are made aware and that they're held up to high environmental standards that we pride ourselves in having here in Canada and Alberta. And I think that any major pipeline spill should definitely get the press that it needs. But I also want to highlight that people should look at the safety records of pipelines in Canada, should look at the environmental regulations and the requirements and the consequences of pipelines spilling and companies that cause spills in Canada. In Fort Mac, you can't take drinking water and spill it on the ground, but you can drink it because it's got too much. For example, we got chlorine or treated water that you're drinking. Can't spill it on the ground in many sites. Can't spill a cup of coffee on the ground in many sites. Like they've got no spill policies where that means if you spill anything, doesn't matter, 5 liters, 500 milliliters, I mean, they're probably going to be reasonable, but if you spill a cup of coffee intentionally, there are sites in northern Alberta which would kick you off site, and likely test you. Yeah, you'd likely get tested post incident. You'd have to go for a urine test to make sure that you're not high or intoxicated on drugs or alcohol. Oh man, it is strict up there, and I wish people were made more aware of how stringent the oil and gas sector really is.
I think with social media and media, right, the media causes moral panic. Right now we live in a time with a lot of overreaction to a lot of things. And this overreaction is from a place of ignorance, right?
Sure.
So people love to overreact to things. That's like the culture we're in right now.
Yeah, when you don't do your research and you see news from Six Buzz, or you know what I mean?
Well, everyone's an expert.
Everyone's an expert.
Everyone's
you didn't know how many experts there are?
I forgot everybody.
Damn.
Everybody knows everything.
Yeah, like
just for disclosure, like I'm not an engineer and I don't know everything about the oil and gas sector, but I am an API 1169 inspector. What that means is I have certification from the American Petroleum Institute that says I have sufficient knowledge to inspect the construction of pipeline on a pipeline right-of-way or facility construction project.
So,
just so you know, so I'm not, I'm not Googling this. I don't have a computer in front of me.
So, with oil and gas, how does Iran fit into all this?
Well, Iran's got the 4th largest reserves in the world at 9% of the global share, where we have 10% of the global share of proven oil reserves. Iran used to export more oil than they do today. Under the Shah, they had good agreements with neighboring countries as well as the Western US countries. Yep. And after the Shah left, during the revolution, a lot of contracts were lost, and Saudi Arabia picked up a lot of those contracts, and Iraq picked up a lot of those contracts of where Iran was starting to lose their grip on market. Look, we can go even further back. In 1953, there was a prime minister in Iran, Mossadegh, who was trying to take over the country's, trying to nationalize Iran's oil and gas sector. What people fail to talk about in that part is that the vast majority of the infrastructure that was used to export Iran's oil and gas or to move it about within the country was private sector. And so as soon as they nationalized it, Iran lost a huge majority of their industry right away, and they didn't have an ability to ship their oil and gas globally, which caused global panic in one regard, and it also threw Iran's economy into a downward spiral. So for the CIA and the MI6 coup that placed the Shah back in power, people have to consider, like, Iran was in a downward fall as well. This was not just some guy who came in and was the national hero in nationalizing Iran's oil. Iran was not doing well under Mossadegh by any stretch, and he was also reported to be jailing many of his political opponents. But aside from that, Iran's a major player in oil and gas because they sit on a gold mine of oil and gas, both in the Persian Gulf and inland.
When I spent some time in Iran, a lot of the basketball teams are owned by oil companies. You know, like Naft Abadan and Petrochimie. It's petrochemicals, I think, though.
Yeah, exactly. Chimie is just French. A lot of French words are brought into Farsi language.
So a lot of the residue of oil is still, it's all over the economy and even the sports and stuff in Iran, right?
Yeah, a lot of their national revenue comes from oil and gas, and Iran doesn't have state recognized income tax for everybody. It's not a universal income tax there, and there's no universal sales tax there, and a lot of that is because they have oil and gas revenue to offset that. Same with countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, right? They use their oil revenues to finance their national needs. Therefore, they don't impose a tax.
Mm-hmm. How did you get into oil and gas? Because you had an interesting journey and have done a lot of different things.
A lot of titles. So
a lot of titles.
Yeah. So when I was a cop, I learned a little bit about legislation. I learned a little about rules and statutes and industry requirements in that regard. A buddy's dad, he owns a small business in the oil and gas sector, and he called me and said, "Hey, we kind of need a safety guy to come work with us. Are you available?" And I said, "Yeah, well, it depends. Like, first we had a conversation about what they're willing to pay and such, and I didn't know there was this kind of money offered in any sector for that matter."
Your eyes lit up. You're like,
as soon as I heard, I was like, "Is this a joke? Like, how long does this go on for?" And as soon as I saw the opportunity, I said, "Hey, like, I'm still pretty young. At that time, I was about 23. I thought, I got my whole life ahead of me. Let's do it." I got in, and from there, I started to realize at that time, the oil and gas sector was booming, and a lot of people were working, and perhaps many of those people weren't exactly qualified to be doing the jobs that they were, or wastefully spending their money on big trucks and a lot of booze and drugs.
Strong.
Yeah. So there's some stereotypical stuff happening, but I recognize that if you keep your head together, if you work hard in this industry, you can get somewhere pretty quickly. So I did. And I can't say I moved up super quick, but it's not that many years into the future, and I'm an API inspector. I'm proud, right?
It's a whole other.
So you were ex-cop, or you're a cop?
I was. I'm not anymore.
Wow,
I promise. I'm not a narc.
cut. No. But so you're a cop.
Yeah.
Then you went into the oil field.
Yeah.
And now you're API inspector.
Yeah.
What are the other titles?
Where did the politics come in?
Well,
business.
I care about my community. I care about my world. And I thought, when I got involved was June of 2015. As soon as the NDP was elected, I was like, "Oh no, what has happened?"
This is different. This is different. Yeah, this is different.
And in June of 2015, I joined the local Progressive Conservative Constituency Association as just a regular member, and then I joined the board, and then I became vice president of events. And then when the merger happened between the PC party and the Wild Rose, and then it became the United Conservative Party, I got involved then. And believe me, there are really good people on all sides of the political spectrum.
Of course.
I know many people in other parties that are fantastic people. We just have disagreements on the way that we think the province should be run. And I got involved that way, and I started helping on whatever campaigns I could. I ran for a nomination election. I came short 50, 100 votes, something like that.
That's weird.
And then as I didn't win, I thought, hey, that doesn't change anything for me. Like, I'm still going to be involved. I got involved in the actual provincial campaign, tried to help as much as I could in most of Edmonton and surrounding areas. And once the party got in power, they offered me a job as a press secretary with them. And I worked with them for a few months. Phenomenal opportunity. And I went back to the oil and gas sector. Obviously, oil and gas sector is quite lucrative. It's tough to say no to that money as well. And if you can be smart with your money, you can save it and you can start a business. In 2017, I partnered with one of my friends, and we opened up a Persian restaurant here in town.
Bah, bah, bah.
I still have yet to go, man.
You got to go. They cook on charcoal, man. It's good food.
It's delicious.
Charcoal, yeah. Charcoal sauce.
Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah. So that's somewhat my professional life, I guess.
I kind of wanted to take it back to the politics side of things and where you started off with that. So it's clear you had I wouldn't say a calling, but a love for it in a sense, where you wanted to make change. Oh, yeah. And a thing about politics is you have this idea of party discipline where you sign up with a party. You have to abide by those ideals.
Toe the line.
Exactly. You toe the line. Do you think that you were affected by that at any point, or do you feel like you went in there and you made change?
You know, most of the stuff that the party did, I agreed with. But again, you can't ever, I mean, I certainly hope nobody 100% agrees with what a single party's doing. Mm-hmm. When I was press secretary, my job was to ensure that the party line was to some extent being towed. That was my profession. And
more into the mic, Payman.
So I definitely took that to heart and made sure that I put aside my own personal views and interests to make sure that my job was being done well.
Yeah. Was that tough for you at any point?
Well, there's many times that you might not agree with what your workplace wants you to do, but as long as it's within ethical and moral compasses, then you do your job, right? Yeah. You don't have to agree with the color of the paint in your office, but it doesn't go against your ethical and moral values or ethics and moral values, then you just sit down, shut up, and do your job.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that.
I think that applies to a lot of jobs, not just with politics too as well. Every job.
Yeah, every job. But one thing that I'd love to say is working in there and seeing the people that I was working with was an incredible opportunity to see how hard our premier and the ministers and their staff members and the legislative staff and even the support staff were working. Like, it is incredible. We are in really, really good hands. Whether people agree or disagree with what's going on, the ideas, these people are really working hard. There's meetings happening in there before people are awake. Like 7 a.m, the education minister is having meetings with school boards. Like, this doesn't normally happen. Mm-hmm. Well, not from what the support staff told me. And so rest assured, like, this province is in pretty good, hard-working hands. Disagree or agree with them, it's a democracy and people voted them in. But they're working very, very hard.
And it's a beautiful building to work in too.
As a fellow voter,
it's a sandcastle.
Wow.
The legislator looks like a big sandcastle, so I always said, "Hey, I work at a sandcastle."
It's nice, man. I know a lot of people take pics there and shit and everything. So
I've been there like 5-6 times.
I had a window facing the graduating students. So all the high schools, they show up in front.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
They're all trying to walk in and out of your office. It's not happening.
In Edmonton, every school I feel like takes those one photo like in the front of the legislator doors. Every single.
I was the only kid that didn't. I missed that. I didn't even know they do that, so I didn't go that day. I just no idea.
2 of us.
There you go. You're from Toronto. What are you talking about?
Saga. Come on.
Oh, my bad. Airport.
Put some respect on it.
Airport.
Wow, that's crazy. Wow.
All they got the airport.
That's an airport zone, bro. I'm about to leave this podcast right now.
Isn't there Kudo Mobile out there or something, or Solo or something?
Kudo? I don't know. Kudo still a thing?
That's crazy. How
I use Kudo, man.
That's crazy.
I
never thought I'd see the day. I never thought I'd see the day, bro.
Couldn't be me.
Man. I need some respect on Mississauga. That's crazy. Wow.
No, I drove through there not long ago. I was on a pipeline project, gas line project in Toronto. Just this past September.
Where?
Oh, it's right by the mayor's office. No.
Oh, what is it?
No, maybe it's best I don't talk about where, but it was in the Toronto region, and I had to drive a couple times by Mississauga. Very nice highway, by the way.
But this is the thing, yo. Every
not
time
toll
I
road
tell
there.
someone, exactly. Actually, no, we got the 407. What are you
You
talking
do,
about?
but I didn't take that one.
That's
Okay, I took
baller
the
freeway.
That's rich
401.
people. That's rich people road.
Baller
Yeah.
Freeway.
Baller freeway.
Yeah, I was working on a pipeline project. We have no money.
That's the thing. Every time I tell someone I'm from Mississauga, they always be like, "Yeah, I've been there before." I'm like, "I'm where?"
Airport.
Oh, just driving by.
Yeah, by
Going
economy.
to Toronto.
Economy car rental, the one that was on CBC Marketplace.
This guy knows.
Scamming everybody for the insurance and all
This guy
that.
knows a lot of
Or whatever they were reporting
I've
on.
probably been like a handful of times, 5 times.
For what?
It's none of your business.
I knew this guy's gonna say
None of
that,
your
bro.
business. I was flying through.
We have good vibes, good energy, and good people out in Sauga City, man. That's all I can say. So
Shout out Pearson International.
shout it out, man.
Shout out Edmonton International. EIA.
So Edmonton's got this a little tech boom.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Tech corridor
The tech corridor
runs from Nate
building.
over to U of A, and they're trying to attract tech-orientated companies, companies that are thinking about artificial intelligence, autonomy, and companies like Google DeepMind have come here. So that's reassuring for Alberta and reassuring for Edmonton's tech industry. Hopefully we can capitalize on that to help diversify our economy. Frankly, I think there's another project that nobody's looking at or talking about. It's called Port Alberta. South of Edmonton, right by the airport, there's a ton of land and there's space for CPCN to build an intermodal there where we could ship goods all across North America from Edmonton. And I'll give you the case. The port in Prince Rupert, BC, on the northern coast has been recently modernized. And obviously the Earth is a globe, right? It's round.
I think we can all agree on that.
I think we've had consensus on this, Audrey. We're good?
Yeah, I'm not Kyrie
Okay.
Irving. What do I look like?
Okay. No, man. The guy from the Flat Earth Society recently launched himself into space. Unfortunately, he passed away on the crash.
Yeah.
But look, if you want to ship goods from China to North America, Prince Rupert is actually a closer port than going to Vancouver or to China. And so we can get goods faster to that port. And the closest rail to Prince Rupert would be Edmonton. I know Vancouver is geographically closer, but you're not going to go through mountains like this. Mm-hmm. So Edmonton would be the closest track for railway. So you could ship a whole lot of cargo ships over to Prince Rupert in their modernized deep sea ports, and you could have that, shipped through rail to Edmonton, where from there you'd have distribution centers, cold storage, warehousing, shipping it all through North America. Our airport's commercial department would rapidly expand. And Amazon recently opened up a warehouse in Nisku.
Yep.
Perhaps they foresee a project like this coming. Maybe not, but I think that would be one way to diversify Alberta's economy. That would be one way to bring a lot of investment here. And that would be a way to put Alberta or Edmonton on the map of industry when it comes to things like that, like cold storage, that warehousing, that logistics, trucking, railway.
It's very interesting.
Very.
I keep telling you, man, Edmonton's a place to...
It's got potential, 100%.
A lot of potential.
We just need to unleash that potential. It doesn't need government dollars. It just needs ideas like this with someone who's willing to bring all of these people to the table. Like, what if somebody said, hey, we're going to host this massive conference and we're going to, showcase what this project can do for Edmonton and Alberta. And then they contacted all these major companies, contacted 100 and got 2 of them to say yes, like a letter of intent, an LOI that if this conference is going ahead, we're planning to be there, whether it's Rosino Trucking or whether it's CP and CN Rail. Then when those guys are coming, you talk to, whoever, Marriott's, and you say, well, do you want to build a hotel nearby? Well, not another one by the airport, but do you want to build a hotel here? If these companies are coming to this conference, it looks like we have some attraction for these kinds of businesses. And then you could contact cold storage companies and say, hey, if CP's building this, maybe you guys want to do this. And then you can partner up with many other industry companies. As soon as you get 1 or 2 on board, others will be interested. The city could work by providing, say, a tax incentive to these companies and say, okay, if you guys invest and you guarantee to build this and be here for 20 years, we'll give you this incentive to come here. But if they break that lease, then they owe all that taxes back anyway. There's ways to do this. I mean, I don't have the ideas for every solution in there, and I think it's an idea worth looking at. Port Alberta, for sure.
Port Alberta.
That's interesting.
Might be a thing.
I think it will be.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
100%.
Yeah, but for now, Alberta's main bread and butter is the oil and gas sector. 25% of our income comes from this sector. It provides wealth and revenue to the rest of the country. And frankly, it produces the world's most ethical, I would say, the oil product. We are, of the 10 top exporters in the world, the only country that is placed 6th on the democracy index, whereas all other 9 countries aren't even in the top 100. So whenever you export Canadian oil and gas, you are exporting a product that took into consideration what environment impact it had, the reclamation that must come after, the human rights that is in that area, the labor standards that people are paid fairly for the work that they're doing, the social impacts.
Sorry, man, this chair is just
no problem. The social impacts, right? Like the country of Canada doesn't judge you on who you love, where you came from, what language you spoke when you got here, or what language you frankly speak while you're here. We embrace ourselves in those standards. And in other countries that are among this top 10 exported list, if you say, for example, said, I like the person of the same gender as me, they may decide to throw you off a building, or stone you to death, or decapitate you in public. So perhaps we should look at these circumstances. We should say Canada shouldn't buy 18% of its imported oil from Saudi Arabia, where these things do occur. Where if you steal, you get your hand cut off. You steal again, they cut off your other hand. Or if you make fun of a specific religion, then they cut off your head.
So then it's a matter of like economics versus ethics. Like, what do you value more as a country? I mean, Canada, we obviously do value money. We want to be prosperous in that sense. So do you think Canada should be limiting those type of countries that are doing those things to their citizens, or do you think they should kind of turn a blind eye and say no?
I don't think it's about money. I think it's about ethics. Like, Canada's just the most ethical place to live in. Like,
I think the question that he's asking is should Canada stop buying oil from countries that practice those grotesque,
ethically sound? Yeah.
I think we should apply the same standards to oil coming into our country that we apply to our own industry.
I see.
And I think it's unfair that we bring oil from countries that practice grotesque acts and then have the audacity to criticize our own sectors, who makes that sector look like, it's Mona Lisa versus Hitler.
Yeah. But then if we do that, then I think we have to apply that to all types of business, whether it's like clothing, for example. You know, China is a huge China plays
like
a huge
the
factor in
reportedly Uyghurs who are producing the Nike clothing that's come out in the news.
Yeah, that's an example.
Well, I heard China, Nike took a big hit because of
that. Yeah.
Well, how about I think perhaps industry can make that decision. Nike took a big hit not because government got involved, but people didn't support that. We have to measure the power of social impact in our consumer decisions, because we do have power in our purchase decisions.
We have a lot of power.
And perhaps if people say, for example, in regions of Canada who do use Saudi imported oil, were given the opportunity to understand where their product came from, perhaps they'd make the decision not to use that product. Perhaps if you had a gas station that disclosed where that product came from, more people would choose to support their local economies. More people would choose to support the same industry who is supporting them. That's one option. That's not something that we're doing right now. We also import oil from Nigeria and Norway and Azerbaijan. Majority of our oil does get imported from the States, about 60 to 65%, I think. And so, that's one option. We could say, if you're buying your oil, or if you're buying your gasoline from here, or if you're buying your, jet fuel from this company or diesel from this company, you're supporting Canadian oil and gas, or you're supporting Canadian families, you're supporting the Canadian economy.
I think that's a different level of consciousness that some people aren't really necessarily ready to embrace.
I think there's people that protest against our oil and gas sector who don't realize how much they use our oil and gas it drives me crazy. Like, why did countries used to hunt whales in such massive numbers? For whale oil, the blubber, they used that. How about polar bears? What were polar bears hunted for? Not necessarily just food.
Or fur.
Fur. But what has oil and gas done? It's allowed us to produce fake and polyester clothes that we can wear instead of leather, instead of killing all these animals, for example, for the animal lovers out there, or the activists. We all love animals. I love dogs, for example.
Shout out my vegans.
There you go. Yeah, I'm actually vegan. Just
You're
so
actually
you know.
vegan?
Yeah, yeah.
Are you like a full? Are you full vegan or
Man,
like?
I will still go hunt. I will kill by hand. I just for myself.
Yeah,
I don't.
You don't eat.
I don't eat
meat
animal
and stuff?
products. That's all. It's nothing to do with love. Like, I love animals. Don't get me wrong. It just.
Cause I heard like the vegan.
For health,
I heard the vegan community is like really strict. Like if you.
I don't know,
you
man.
wear,
I'm
like,
not
fur and
that
shit, like
strict.
Canada Goose. Like they're like, nah. What are you doing?
I dare somebody to pour paint on my Canada Goose.
Pour some paint on
I'm
your
gonna
Canada
show
Goose.
them what I learned at boxing.
You're throwing hands.
But that's my
Throwing
point.
hands,
Is like,
bro.
oil and gas has also allowed us to do these things. You know, if you look at a Google Images map of Haiti, it's on the same island as Dominican. If you look at the Google Images satellite image, you'd see a distinct line between the two countries, and Haiti would have this, this more brown, desertified look to it, whereas Dominican would be this luscious green country. Let me remind you, Haiti runs on 100% renewable energy. Dominican imports and subsidizes fossil fuels so that people don't have to burn trees and animal dung to cook their food or heat up their homes. They use propane. Where in Haiti, they don't use propane. They use animal dung and trees and forests. And so the country's being deforested, whereas Dominican is well forested. We need to remember, like, oil and gas provides us an opportunity, an alternative to wrecking our environment. Now, it's not a solution to saving the environment by any means, but it does give people the opportunity to lift out of poverty, gives people the opportunity to increase their country's economy to the point that they become aware of these issues. There's some magic number I read. It was $4,000 GDP per capita. When your country reaches that, they start to reforest the country. And it's maybe because people are more quote unquote woke about their environmental impact, and rightfully so. But remember, oil and gas has helped us make these changes. We don't hunt polar bear for their fur necessarily anymore. We don't.
We still hunt polar bear?
Yeah, you can hunt polar bear up north. No, polar bear numbers are increasing like
Really?
incredibly. They're becoming a nuisance in parts of northern
I gotta-
Scandinavia.
Why do I feel like every
gotta
time I
fact
see
check this.
every
Please
time I
Google
see
this.
something on the media, I see a polar bear
Man, that
sinking in
skinny
the
polar
water
bear-
and shit.
No, they don't
and-
sink.
you
They
know what
swim
I mean?
very, very well. Very, very well.
They don't have enough iceberg and stuff to float on.
They got more food than they know.
They're good, though.
Yeah,
So
because
you're
the
saying they're
seals. Look, I'm not supporting global warming
Yeah.
or climate change by any means, but the issue is that they have more food available to them
So they're
right
good.
now
Okay.
because of what's happening, and so their numbers have rapidly increased.
Okay.
And so every assessment that the globe keeps making, and every time they keep counting the numbers, it keeps increasing. I encourage anybody that has these questions, Google on a credible website and find out what the numbers of polar bears are and how they're becoming a nuisance in northern Scandinavian areas.
22 to 31,000 worldwide.
So I don't know what website that, but regardless, like, I would say just
WWF.
yeah, not Stone Cold Steve Austin 316.
They were.
Yeah,
And that's
so-
the bottom line.
Yeah.
Stone Cold said
Can
so.
you smell what the whale blubber is cooking? Yeah, see, we use fossil fuels now, so we don't have to kill whales and use them for their whale blubber and whale oil.
So in a sense, oil and gas is the most environmental friendly.
Sometimes,
I don't know about
sometimes, not always,
Chief.
right? No, look, oil and gas is not the most environmentally friendly way of producing energy, but it's an economically feasible way to transition to a more environmental friendly way. We recognize solar panels produce power. Voltaic cells produce energy, but you need the right amount of sun exposure. You need probably the right latitude so that you can absorb the sun's rays effectively, so it's feasible for you to have these products.
Isn't constructing solar panels detrimental to the environment?
Well, think about what you're
Really?
doing to the area underneath the solar panels. Think about how much surface area you require to produce how much energy. I still think nuclear is the way to go if you want to be sustainable in your energy production. And you can do microgeneration, so it doesn't provide the same, or it doesn't produce the same risk as the larger plants. And frankly, you don't need the same surface area by any means.
So are solar panels worth it? Like, is it
Well,
have good returns to scale? Is it something that people should be investing in, or
you know who should determine that? Markets. The moment that government has to subsidize these things is the moment that you realize it's still not economically viable. The moment that an industry or a company or a business or a person makes that decision on their own without subsidies and grants is the moment that it's economically feasible to do it. And frankly, the first thing that people are going to worry about is their own pocketbooks, because that's what you eat with. That's what you travel with. I mean, we could all live extremely sustainably, but nobody wants to make that change on their own. They always just want to tell you and how you should live your life.
Yeah, a lot of pointing fingers.
I think every environmentalist who's protesting against the oil and gas sector, I'm happy to teach them how to shut the gas off to their home. Like, there's only one valve. Like, just shut it off. Like, don't use the gas. And then remember, the paint on your walls is oil and gas derivative.
Cars that they drive.
Let's talk about, how do you think that the metal on their cars produce? That manufacturing is very oil and gas. It uses a lot of energy to produce those products. You use oil and gas in your toothbrush, medical products, syringes. What are they going to say? Start making glass syringes in the hospitals? Of course not.
Paint a picture for me. How would the average lifestyle, day in the life of someone who never used oil and gas look like?
What's the temperature outside?
Like what? 1 degree, 2 degrees?
Want to go camping?
I mean, shit.
Not in a plastic tent though. Like, we'd have to build one out of wood.
Straight wood, eh?
Oh yeah, and we have to cut the wood by hand, and hopefully not using any metals that use energy from oil and gas. And heaven forbid we use steel, because that has coal in it. Let's talk about our wooden bicycles. Wood tires. I mean, you could use cotton, I guess.
I'm not biking in the rain.
Yeah, shout out oil and gas.
Shout out, yeah.
No, it's just like,
Facts.
look, we know we have to transition to a more renewable resource. We recognize that the world is changing because we're pumping too much CO2 into the atmosphere. But that doesn't mean we shut down the very industry that lifts us out of poverty. Oil and gas keeps us alive. What about all those people who depend on medical assistance to stay alive? Should we just off with them? Are we going back to Darwinism, natural rights? How long are those environmentalists going to last in those worlds?
Not long, I'll tell you.
I mean, heaven forbid they're advocating for don't hurt the deer at the same time as, the oil and gas sector is the evil of all earth and capitalism is pure evil. Well, your iPhone, I mean, if you want to go ahead and try and make that on your own farm, be my guest. Do you know what a burger would cost if capitalism didn't exist?
Are you in favor of capitalism?
Man, capitalism brought me this tea. You know how much it would cost me to make this tea? For me to make something that can boil water, make a mug myself, and then go grow tea leaves in Canada and Alberta in this weather. I mean, I'm probably going to be doing it outdoor. Then harvest the tea, dry it, make some kind of cotton pouch for the tea to go into that, boil the water. Like let's talk about capitalism. Let's talk about what it would cost you to make a burger. You probably spend $3,000 trying to make one burger, because you have to raise a cow, you'd have to butcher the cow, you'd have to grow wheat, you'd have to, you'd have to grind it down to flour, and then bake your own bread, and you got to grow tomatoes and
Long
the cheese.
process, yeah.
Heaven forbid you got to make your own cheese. I mean, fermented cow milk.
So let me throw this at you. What are your thoughts on, having a communism type system?
Yeah, right.
Let me throw it. No, hold on.
I don't want to get violent here.
I asked my friend. The other day, and he told me, he gave me a hot take. He said, communism done right,
There's no
could work.
Communism done right is anarchy. No, it is literally.
Okay.
Like, you're literally saying no government in place. You're saying common sharing of everything. That's leftist anarchism. That's no governance. Everyone will act in everyone else's best interest. How about greed? Where does greed come in?
Is it everyone acts in their own best interest?
No, sorry, in the best interest of the community.
Yeah,
sorry,
the community.
communitarian.
So
that's what I meant. Look, communism fails to take into consideration that we have emotions.
Yeah, that is the one flaw.
Big whoops. I mean, computers are good communists. human beings inherently, we have serotonin, right? It's important to us. When we pick our mate, we look for characteristics that show healthiness and these things, and your emotions and the hormones that go through your body, your serotonin, your oxytocin, these things will affect your decision making. You can never ever have a communist state work in the world with humans and emotions.
Before you go, I think we need to stop villainizing capitalism, because a lot of the stuff we use, like you were saying, comes from capitalism. I think it's more about like conscious capitalism, right? Instead of like looking at it as strictly transactional, it's like, okay, if I'm selling you a product, how am I making your life easier?
I don't know of any state that's truly capitalist either. Like, I don't know of
a socialist
Of
type.
course.
Yeah,
look at Canada.
fun,
We have
yeah.
universal health care. That's a 100% socialist policy. And it's one that I support. It's hard to say that there's 100% any ideology in any country, unless stupidity was an ideology. And then I would say Islamic Republic of Iran is following this ideology to a T.
There's obviously in the news right now, a lot going on with COVID-19.
Oh, a lot, 100%. Some myths and some are true. But what's your take on that? Because it's affecting a lot. I just seen in the news the other day that Corona beers are even being affected by that, where sales have dropped largely because it's has the same name as a coronavirus.
Yeah, look, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a virologist. I'm not an epidemiologist. But given what I've seen in the news, it looks like a highly contagious disease that is spreading somewhat out of control in the world. I think the World Health Organization essentially accepting that every person on the planet at some point could get this disease.
Sorry to interrupt. What classifies a pandemic?
So a pandemic would be a disease that's out of control, that's passed on to multiple countries and is affecting massive numbers of people around the world and not just contained to a single area. I know what's going on today, based on what I'm seeing, it would likely meet that definition of a pandemic.
Really?
But definitely, probably days ago. But I think the World Health Organization is being careful in that when they do determine something to be a pandemic, then their words again in media and their press conference was that they would be accepting that at some point every single person would be infected.
I think they just don't want to cause that moral panic.
Yeah, you don't want to scare people because that can even make it worse, right? So,
yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's I see it growing out of control in many countries. One being Iran, because of the lack or the incompetence and the misleading government that's in place there right now. Mm-hmm. They're failing to inform people of what's actually happening. They're failing to take people's best interest into account, and they're not acting in the best interest of their own citizens. It seems like they're acting only in their own personal best interests. Again, another check mark to add to the further reasons why this government shouldn't be, or this regime shouldn't be in power.
It's been like that for 40 years.
To me, that doesn't make sense. What interests are your best interests if it's not for the people?
Well, they want us to think about this. If you've got a company who's very corrupt and you've got a CEO making absolute, billions and billions of dollars, and you've got grunt workers making minimal money, and say the government gives that company some massive grant and says, there's $50 billion on the table for your company to have better environment for your workers, but you hold back that information.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a comparable.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, the Iranian government has been corrupt for the last 40, since they came into power, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of like the karma. It's all just coming right back to them because the first infection of corona was in Guam.
Yeah, so they announced that on February, I think it was the 19th, 2 people were infected in Qom and they died.
In Guam, yeah.
Qom is the religious hotspot in Iran. Look, I don't know if I would call it karma because it's the people that are suffering there. But to see the the force of the virus doing what the sanctions couldn't. I mean, there's one view there.
Yeah.
To say that it's there's a joke going around on some of the Iranian social medias that talks about finally something was able to get rid of the clerics in Qom, was able to make like ethyl alcohol available for purchase at pharmacies and stop the Friday prayers of people screaming death to America after 41 years. So there's a going joke that the virus is doing these good things for the Iranian people. But again, the people are suffering because the government isn't willing to share information appropriately. Iran is showing a fatality or mortality rate of 10, 12, 15%, which isn't reflective of what the rest of the world is experiencing.
Yeah.
And I don't think Iran is an immunocompromised community, nor is the virus appearing to randomly target older or immunocompromised people. I think they're just not reporting how many cases of people are infected there.
Oh, yeah.
Therefore, the numbers of death compared to the number of infected keeps giving you higher than normal numbers.
Mm-hmm. Well, all the information that comes out of there is like, it's very, very questionable. Right? There's no credibility
behind
that government anymore.
Yeah. So I mean, it's important to remember, like it's a complex world, this politics.
Oh.
And it's very divisive, especially with social media, the access of information,
propaganda.
Of course,
it's interesting to me how there is so much access to information, and people still choose to be ignorant and idiotic and just.
Ignorance is bliss, my friend.
It is.
Do you really want to know what it costs for you to be sitting here and how many lives it costs for you to sit on this chair? Like, do you want to go down that road?
I don't think people are uninformed. I think people are more misinformed.
Yeah.
Where you have all this access to social media, and I can go on my laptop right now and Google anything. You know what I mean? But am I going to do?
It's
that?
Opinions, right? It's not scholarly. Like people say, oh, gravity's just a theory, right? They think a theory in their mind is the same as people saying gravity's a theory. A theory in the world of science it's
proven, testable.
Is usually scientific consensus. It's people agree. Experts on these topics agree about these so-called theories. But when you say, well, I have a theory that the color in my house is associated to, like, that's not the same as a scientific theory. Mm-hmm. So that's the problem, is like a lack of understanding of these issues, including many things I don't understand, right? I always try to learn what I can about all the topics that I'm interested in, but oh man, if you want to learn about everything, good luck. Good luck.
Not enough time. You said something about like when you were talking about socialism,
okay,
and government.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the Islamic Republic of Iran.
I did,
which I do.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Which I think we see the news, what's going on. There's a lot of misinformation about what's going on in Iran, right?
Yeah, there's not enough bad about the government. Yeah, in reality, yeah, there's a lot of information. Sorry, go ahead.
A lot of misinformation.
A lot of misinformation. A lot of lack of credible sources.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I don't even want to get into the Corona thing. Last week I was reading.
You don't like Corona beers, bro?
First of all, beer is disgusting. Like, absolutely.
The beer or beer?
Beer. Period.
You don't like beer?
No, beer. I gotta agree with you. Beer is dirt.
What is wrong with you guys,
I'm
man?
dirt. I'm not. You're an Alberta boy. I understand. Like,
I drink Belgian beer, like Stella.
Still beer. I'm cool with the Shirley Temple.
You know what Albertans drink?
X.
What's the drink of Alberta?
Isn't like there's a fucking
Saskatchewan Pilsner, man. Nah. And what's Alberta's favorite football team?
What, the Eskimos?
Saskatchewan Roughriders. Are you guys kidding me right now?
I'm being dead. Nah.
I'm being dead serious.
Really?
Dead serious.
I know you're joking.
I've seen a couple of Sask fans.
The favorite football team in Alberta is Saskatchewan Roughriders.
It's not the Stampeders and it's not the Eskimos.
That's a long-going joke in Alberta. Is Saskatchewan Roughriders is the favorite team of Albertans.
Okay.
Yes.
I see it.
A lot of Saskatchewans here in Alberta. Proudly, I love the Saskatchewan people.
Shout out to Saskatchewan.
Yeah, hey, ladies. You know, it is pretty flat in some parts. I've driven through Saskatchewan, and there are parts that you could technically say if you stood on a sardine can, you could see next week coming.
You know what? It's crazy. I was there.
You could watch your dog run away for 3 days in some parts. Yeah. No, literally.
Yeah, I was there like last year, and like restaurants closed at like 9. I was so pissed. I was trying to get some food.
You never been to small town Alberta, eh?
No business.
I'm a city boy, man. Come
No
on,
business
this is
there.
all good. Born and raised.
You know, I thought, when I first moved to southern Alberta, I moved to a city called Brooks when I was a cop.
Oh.
And when I lived in Brooks, I'd never heard about it. I never Googled it, didn't know anything. I was a city slicker up here in Edmonton, right?
Yeah.
Just chilling about. And when I saw the posting there, I thought, perfect, I'm going to go to Brooks. And I went down there with the idea that I'm going to be in southern Alberta, boy, right? I was down there and I thought, I had this idea that as soon as I roll into town, someone at a gas station is going to be like, boy, you lost around here. I got in, man. I thought I was in Detroit. Like there were, I was minority,
shut up. No
but not
way.
in the,
There's a lot of black people down there.
I was minority
Brooks?
in the light sense,
In
man.
Brooks.
It was the most awkward. Like I never felt like that.
In Brooks, Alberta.
I understood what a white guy walking through, like some parts of
Yeah.
Chicago felt like. I was like,
Really?
what? Like not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Just, I was light.
That's
like,
crazy.
They got like a meat.
meat packing plant.
Plant,
yeah.
And
Zach
Brooks,
Sell Foods
Alberta.
and Lakeside Packers at the time named. So I moved into a neighborhood that I rented over Kijiji. Don't ever do this. And when I went home, I arrested my neighbor off duty one day, like a couple months in. I'm telling you, it was not the greatest part of town.
How do you go
It was
home?
so awkward. I moved right away.
Yes.
And the landlord understood. He was like, oh,
Yeah,
no,
you-
all good, brother. All good.
yeah,
You
I
just
understand.
keep on moving. I was like, all right, thanks, man. And I moved into an area we called Law Enforcement Crescent. It was just this crescent where like half the people lived in the crescent were all cops. So we felt so safe. We felt
That's
so
great.
safe. Like I didn't feel safe at all where I first lived. 'Cause I didn't know, and I definitely didn't fit in. And after I arrested my neighbor off duty, it was not. wasn't-
So when did you find
was
out?
awkward.
When did you find out? Like when you went home that next day and you seen him walk out his house or something, or like
No, not the next day. It was like a couple of months after I'd moved in. I step outside my house, and my neighbor knows I'm a cop, and I just got off work, so I've got my uniform on underneath my jacket, but you could tell, like if you look at my pants, and I'm looking at the guy. He's looking back at me, and he's got weed in his hand, and he's selling. Like he had just
On the stoop?
Yeah, he had just
Making some
I guess
props.
made a transaction of some sort. And all I remember is saying like, "Oh no." He's looking at me. He's looking at me. I'm looking at him. He knows I'm a cop. Oh crap. I can't. Like if I don't do anything at that point, it undermines the force.
and your title,
Right? Like,
Disrespects.
it shows that I will turn a blind eye to crime of that severity, right? Like if someone's speeding through or blows a little bit through a stop sign while I'm off duty, like I'm not going to call it in and, or write the guy a ticket next day. Oh, I saw you do this. Like I'm not a super trooper, right? But when you see it so blatantly, it's you're obligated to do something, right? And so I was like, oh crap. So I'm like, hey man, I'm gonna have to arrest you.
So you had like was one side telling you like just let him go,
Yeah,
and the other was
of
like,
course.
nah,
You always got
gotta
that. You got the little the white
the
devil,
angel, you got
the white devil and the black angel. Yeah, like you've got both. You've got both on your shoulder, and they're telling you what to do every time that you do anything as a cop. And the first question I always thought about in anything I did was public interest. Is it in the public interest for me to do what I'm about to do? Like, is it in the public interest to pull somebody over for going 1 over the speed limit? Of course not. You know, you can arrest somebody in Alberta for going 1 over the speed limit.
That's
you could
nonsense.
physically take them out of the car and handcuff them. Place them under arrest for going 1 over the speed limit. But what cop in their right mind is going to do that? It's not in the public interest. I mean, you could use it on a guy that was trying to get away or was a known criminal that did something wrong that you wanted a reason to pull him over for. You could be like, yeah, I'm pulling him over for going 1 over, and then just obviously tell a judge, like, I didn't write him for the 1 over. I just used it as grounds to pull the vehicle over or whatever the case is. I mean, there are many other reasons you could pull somebody over for, but my point is everything that I did was that I thought was in the public interest. If I'm walking in a bar and someone's drunk in there, is it in the public interest for you to arrest everyone that's intoxicated, although it's illegal to be intoxicated? Of course not. someone's acting out, that's what the law is for, right? So you enforce according to what you think is in the best interest of the public.
I mean, a man trapping on his doorstep is kind of right, man.
Broad daylight too. Like when was this? This was like 2 p.m., 3 p.m.
This was right after shift, about probably 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Summertime.
Sun's still out.
Oh, summertime.
Come on.
Yeah, it was bright. Yeah, and you run into some awkward situations too. Like you would have pulled somebody over, you write them a ticket, right? They're doing something that deserved the ticket, and then you go shopping. To go buy bread and stuff. And they're the cashier. And you're like, oh man. Should I go through this aisle? And like, you can't get out now because she made eye contact. And like, she's scanning someone else's stuff before yours right now. And you're like, oh my God, she's going to crush this bread. She's going to slam this bread. It's not going to be toast anymore.
That's the thing.
It's going to be a baguette.
As a cop, like you're interacting with a lot of people per day.
Especially in small towns.
So like if you go to like a restaurant or something, imagine you pulled over a guy. That guy happens to be working as a chef in that restaurant.
Imagine you go, drink at the nightclub in town. You go with a few of your fellow officer buddies, and you're in there, and the people you run into are the same ones that were at the check stop earlier that day, and you're like, oh, I literally just towed your car, and you literally just got an impaired charge. Why are you in the bar again?
It's too much.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, you run into that stuff. And one thing that was, here's a good part of the story. As a young single guy, when I was a cop, oh my good God, I didn't know what kind of a magnet the uniform was until I put it on. Man, I had no idea.
I heard women love a man in uniform. I'll tell you that right now.
Especially one with handcuffs. I'm only kidding. But realistically. Yeah, it surprised me. I used to have a convertible when I was 19, like a Nissan 350Z, a nice car for a 19-year-old at the time. And a lot more girls were attracted to the uniform than the convertible.
What is it?
I don't know.
You guys ever seen Catch Me If You Can?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Leo, I don't like that guy.
What?
Come on, man. The guy jets around the world in his private jets, and then he protests against the oil and gas sector here in Alberta. Where is he? Where is he for the indigenous populations here when they're in poverty, or the extremely high suicide rates in those communities? Why is he not talking about that? Why is it only against Alberta's oil and gas sector and calling it the tar sands? I am happy to watch Leo DiCaprio movies, but him as a person, the Jane Fondas in the world, they're nowhere to be found when real change is needed in supporting these communities. The indigenous families in northern Alberta and throughout BC have found a way to come out of poverty using the oil and gas sector, the very same sector that these, Hollywood zealots seem to be vilifying.
That's a very interesting take. Very, very interesting take.
Oh, for sure.
I'm a big fan of Leo.
I call these people out because their voices carry so much weight, and if you don't call them out for these things, frankly, the narrative or the propaganda being pushed out by these people is going to carry a lot more effect if we don't push back.
Because as an entertainer, you have a huge following. You have people that will literally, I wouldn't say die for you, but like, for example, you have Beyonce, part of the Hive, Nicki Minaj, Rihanna. Like if I was to go on Twitter right now and talk bad about them, at least probably 20, 30 of her fans would come attack me. So you have like
talk bad about her. Say something.
We'll say that for another episode. Are you crazy? So you have really like devoted, dedicated supporters of these people, and like they'll almost do anything they say.
Look, I'm sure he's a good guy, right? Just very misinformed, and I don't know what his personal interest is in campaigning against, again, what I would call the world's most ethical fossil fuel product. It's what's unethical is the way that they vilify this industry without the education of what's going on. Like a barrel of oil made in Alberta, I read somewhere has less emissions than 13 major oil fields in California. He lives in California. We'll talk to those 13 oil fields first, then come to Alberta and talk to us, and let's get a tour of what's going on in our industry. Go spill a cup of coffee on Fort Hills Suncor site, and let's see how long you last on site if you could just go work there for a day. They wouldn't let him work.
He's been to Alberta. He's been to Banff. Y'all seen the Revenue?
Really? Oh, that was shot in Banff, eh?
Yeah, I think Banff. Shit. Yeah, it's shot in Alberta. I don't know
movie is
if
very
it's bad
tough.
exactly.
Man, you know, Ricky Gervais said it best. Like, many of these people have less schooling than Greta Thunberg, and they come and tell people what to do in their ordinary day-to-day lives. Like, just, you know, like, as Ricky said it best, like, just accept your award, thank your God, and like, fuck off the stage.
That's the thing too. Like, when you have people in positions of that are highly talented, people automatically assume like they're extremely, extremely wise or knowledgeable on whatever subject. And
Some of them are, though.
Some of them are. Don't get me wrong.
Like
LeBron
some
James,
of them are educated.
for sure.
Jay-Z's,
yep.
guys like that, credible. I get that. But then you have others where it's like, okay, why are you talking about
I would
this?
challenge Jane Fonda or Leo DiCaprio, me as an average, everyday Albertan who has some experience in the oil and gas sector. I would challenge them and anyone else with experience, like with similar experience, any average Joe with relative experience in Alberta's oil and gas sector. These world environmentalist heroes, sit down with one of them, have a conversation. Let's see where this debate ends up. I mean, it's misguided people who want to seem like they are sitting on some high horse and they're saving the world. Well, it's easy to say when you live in California, yeah, Alberta tar sands are so evil. Well, do you want people to die in the cold? No? Okay, well, they're going to need fossil fuels. Oh, you want them to do it renewable energy? Feel free. Come up here and build the company. No one's doing it because it's not feasible for them. Why are you in movies and not, making documentaries on the environment then?
Yeah.
Because it makes you money.
It's a give and take, yeah.
This world of capitalism and fossil fuels has built their entire world, and they have the audacity to stand up and say, oh, no, this is bad. This is so evil. Okay?
Wait, man. That was a lot to process.
I'm going to be processing this. I can't
You guys want to talk about astrophysics?
He always wants to talk about astrophysics.
I love astrophysics.
That's what you studied, right?
You study astro?
Yeah. Just
shit.
a couple courses.
Couple years.
There, yeah.
Subtle flex.
Yeah. No.
No.
Just our main sequence G25 star.
G25 star?
Yeah,
Star.
we have a main sequence star here. Like the sun. We say our sun. It's not our sun. We belong more to the sun. The sun belongs to us. Just FYI.
Facts.
No, really. Like we belong more to the sun. The sun belongs to us. So every time someone's like, "Oh, well, that's our sun," no, it's not our sun. We are the suns. We belong to the sun.
These are my sons. You guys are my sons.
Let's slow your roll down there. Slow your roll down there.
Payman, man, thank you for coming.
No problem.
We appreciate you. Yep.
This is a great episode. I learned a lot about oil and gas. Still, I've been indifferent about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was on the fence about it this whole time. I think I'm leaning more towards being on the pro side. I wouldn't say I'm all the way there yet, but
don't want to piss anybody off.
but yeah,
Berta strong.
Yeah. Gas and oil.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, it's a process, man. Saga, man. Come on.
The gifted gab, baby.
We're here.
We're back.
We're not about to be here because the episode's finishing. So yeah.
You guys know what to do. Subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe again.
Comment, like, share. Email giftedgabpod@gmail.com for any questions, comments, concerns, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Hit up Payman. He's
got the answers.
Oil and gas guy.
He's got the answers.
Former politician. He's been on CNN.
He's not sway. He's not sway. He's got the answers, man.
He's gone back and forth with Anderson Cooper.
Those deep blue eyes.
Yeah.
Pause.
Full stop. Fire.
P Parseyan. That's the handle, right?
Yeah. On everything.
On everything. Twitter. Instagram.
We'll throw that right here.
Yep, right. Somewhere right here.
Right.
Oh, thanks, guys. It's right there.
Here.
Yeah, I
Put
see
it
it.
right here.
I see it now.
See that?
Yeah, it's right there.
Got you.
That's good. Spill some coffee on it.
We will get you back on here one day, man.
100%.
No problem. As soon as you guys want to talk astrophysics, you let me know, all right?
Appreciate you, man.
No problem.
Appreciate
You like the sweaty hands?
Just like that.
It is what it is, man. It is what it is.
We gone.